do your own research. One of the first things you do before writing and committing to any plan is the research. In the case of marketing, you might not only want to go into it knowing just what you plan to achieve, but also just who your customers are. Moreover, you want to know everything about your potential customers you possibly can. Relying upon stereotype and assumption just isn't good enough, since it's your livelihood that's at stake here. Being a hot topic in marketing these days, there are a lot of studies that have been done lately regarding who is buying products that currently are on the market, but that only gives you a profile of their customers. It cannot be stressed enough that the research others have done is only the roughest of guides to give you an idea of where to start. This is not the place to cut corners. If you're already in business, you can talk to your existing customers and find out what they're looking for in a premium offering. If your product or service is looking to entice a demographic that isn't commonly thought of as ecologically friendly, you'll be blazing new trails and will have to find out just what is likely to motivate. It's entirely likely that your customers will consider the ecological nature of your product a side benefit of the quality or convenience your repackaged or reformulated product or services deliver. If your business is new, you'll be coming at it from the opposite direction. You'll be hoping to find an existing demographic, maybe one that finds a related product or service particularly desirable. You'll be looking to see who is a good fit for what you have to offer and then find out how best to reach them. Either way, you might want to spend some time talking with potential customers, perhaps giving away samples and asking them what they think about it. Asking questions as you might on a product survey is helpful. Find out what aspect of their lives you can help them with. Large companies employ people to conduct focus groups. If your business is small, you can perform your own small version of this. Be sure to talk to a wide group of people to accurately gauge their responses. And most importantly, don't overlook demographics that others might dismiss out of hand. After all, untapped potential has the greatest returns. You can focus on a small percentage of a large demographic if you already have wide distribution to create a craze within a very small market segment. Either way, the more you find out about them, the better off you and your business will be. Attach your green label to superior products only. As has been noted already, it's not enough to simply be the ecologically sensitive version of the product. You need to deliver something extra for those extra pennies. Otherwise, your customers will feel like you're trying to take advantage of them. The difference must be somehow demonstrable. If you're offering a product that will help your customers save money by conserving, the difference has to be great or they won't bother recommending you to their friends. If your food goods taste better because they're better for you, it has to be noticeable. If that means you need to put extra time into the presentation or preparation, so be it. Assume you've only got one chance to really knock their socks off. If your product is better because it's more creative or useful, you need to make sure you stay on top of things and deliver knock your socks off customer service. If you're going to market locally, be sure you're available to interact and always put your best foot forward, offering the sort of experience only a neighbor can provide. What you have to offer must be compelling. If the only difference between you and the competition is how someone might feel about your product or something esoteric like that, a window for someone else to nose in on your success will be open. Your niche should be the only one quite like it. Chapter 2. Greening up your business. Now that you've decided to go this route, after some serious and heartfelt consideration, it's time for action. The first step to finding your ecological niche is making sure you practice what you preach. While you don't have to be 100% done with your changes before you start marketing your new product or service, you will definitely need to have your plan fully laid out. The process of defining the way you're going to do business will help you get your marketing strategy more clearly in focus. Defining the mission. All business operations, and probably all personal ones, should have a mission statement. It should be straight and to the point. If you're already in business, odds are you already have one. Dust it off and take a look at it. Does it need to change? How can you most clearly define what you hope to accomplish? Why are you making the change? If you're coming up with a new mission, what can you do with this organization? Are you providing something new or better? How will you gauge whether you're staying on mission? Careful planning at this stage can help everyone stay focused on what's important and not get bogged down in the details. Take an honest inventory. What can you really hope to accomplish in the first year? Do you have any way of really delivering as you hope to? Now is the time to sit down and do some figures. Even if you don't have to approach a bank with a financial plan, you'd better have one. How many organic veggies can you put on each pizza and still make enough profit to keep up with the level of service you've determined is ideal? Get out a scale and a calculator and find out. This is research and development time. Since you're not going to compromise on quality, something else may have to give. Are you in an industry where your movements are constrained by market or regulatory forces? Will you be constrained by operational capital? Not only should you plan out your best case scenario, but you'll also need to figure out what you're going to do if everything goes wrong all at once. Don't make all your changes or put all your sales eggs in one basket until you know you can keep things going if your potential customers don't respond right away. Can you really do this? All the ecologically friendly practices are for naught if your business folds after 6 months of being overextended. Will the cost savings you receive from conservation efforts be enough to fund an expansion of your product or service line? How quickly can or should you implement changes without alienating your existing customers? Now that you've identified the forces that are acting against your goal, what can your business do to be more ecologically friendly? There's a lot of opportunity, as you'll soon see. Much of it can have an impact on your bottom line immediately. Make a list of clear and attainable goals. The rules for personal goal setting are applicable in a business situation. You need short-term goals that you can attain and cross off your list, and some long-term goals to keep you hungry. They should be stated as concisely as possible so there's no ambiguity. Since this is a business operation, you'll need to establish some clear benchmarks. This may be in terms of cost savings, milestones in your plan, or even money earned. Figure out what these will be ahead of time as you're deciding what green will mean to you. Make sure your employees are behind it. All but the smallest startups will have an employee or two, or 2,000. The success of your new initiative will largely depend upon their support and cooperation. Now is a good time to get their input on how your initiative will be received by the workforce. Solicit ideas from them. They might have given this a great deal of thought already. Spending 40 hours a week on a given task allows most people the opportunity to gain insight into its nuances. While some of your employees may be 100% behind your eco plan, others may need convincing. This is an opportunity for education and motivation. If there's one thing people hate, it's being forced into doing extra work for the boss's most recent hot idea. Don't force it. Find out what they have in mind. You may discover some fresh ideas you haven't thought of. Of course, you're still in charge and have the final say, but this is a good chance to gauge where you stand in the process. Having spent some time outlining exactly why you want to do this, you'll be in a good position to answer any questions they might have. If you do have employees that are, for some strange reason, vehemently opposed to your plan, find out why. Just because isn't a sufficient answer, and shoulder shrugging won't do. If they still refuse to cooperate without reason, you will want to make sure they're not in a position to make extra work for everyone else with their bad attitude. On the other hand, if they do have legitimate concerns, now is a great time to address their fears. Anything you can do at the earliest stages of greening up your business to get everyone on the same page will be invaluable in making sure the plan goes smoothly. Creating a timetable for agreed-upon changes. Along with setting goals, you'll want to make sure you keep things moving on pace too. Once you've gotten a feel for what sort of support you'll have, you can make informed decisions about how quickly you want to jump into the changes. Make a list of clear milestones and when you'd like to have them in place. For instance, let's say you want to make sure there's 80% compliance in recycling paper products in your offices after 1 month. If it's just you, that'll be easy. If your organization is much larger, you may need to enlist the help of someone else to keep tabs on your company's progress. It is probably wise to assume that the larger your operation, the longer it will take to make changes. A car can stop on a dime, but a long train takes a mile. Be realistic. If you're just starting out, You no doubt have all sorts of plans on some type of timetable. If there are things you need to grow to be able to afford, it might be best to build some slack into your plans. Slack doesn't mean indefinitely delayed, just a bit out of range. Should you find that you're not making the timetable you've set out for yourself, there's no need to panic or decide that you might as well give it all up. It's just a guide to give the goals you've already outlined some urgency. Simple things anyone can do. Your employees have the power to make a big difference in cost savings measures. While all the big stuff gets routed through your office, they are presented with opportunities to be green every day. Help them by making it easier to work green than not. If, on the other hand, your business is still very small, your employee is sure to be motivated. Recycling. Everything we use has to grow or be dug up, processed, packaged, and transported before we can use it. Recycling ultimately eliminates the need for the first step and avoids filling up holes in the ground with things that can be reused somehow. Most cities and waste disposal services offer free recycling because they don't have to manage nearly as large of a dump or pay fees to use one. Recycling is also a business where people can make good money for the raw materials they recover. The first step that comes to just about everyone's mind is probably the easiest. Most people are familiar with recycling cans, bottles, office paper, cardboard, plastic bottles, and paperboard like cereal boxes. Most municipalities provide an easy way for people to recycle such things curbside. After 20 years, most people are familiar with these sorts of recycling as long as there are enough containers around and they're clearly marked. If you're just beginning to recycle in earnest, you might want to take some time to show people how everything is done and why, so they remember. Some things are tougher to place than others, though just as reusable. Some things are hazardous and can't be put in the trash can or dumpster. What can you do with plastic bags and packing peanuts? It turns out that just about everything is recyclable, even if it isn't picked up at curbside. Even old computers can be taken and refurbished for use. Some places specialize in that sort of thing. Some of these places will even pick the recycling up for you. It doesn't hurt to ask. One way or another, someone will have to be in charge of coordinating removal, whatever form that may take. Your city may run a central yard for items, though there are also other private companies that take deliveries. Some items require treatment to be disposed of safely and may have a fee, though most items are free to bring in even to private companies. It is, in fact, less expensive to recycle the average truckload of stuff than to take it to the dump anymore. A brief list of things you might recycle in this manner includes old tins of half-used paint, batteries of whatever sort, harmful chemicals, you probably have to pay a small disposal fee since it has to be treated, old computers, just about anything that can be refurbished to its original function, though perhaps not the original condition, just about anything that can be transformed into something else on a large industrial scale, like turning used plastic bottles into textile fibers. You may not have even thought that some items might be able to be reused. Though the term junk man has gone out of fashion for obvious reasons, plenty of companies engage in upcycling or finding creative uses for turning discarded items into useful or decorative things people will happily pay a premium price for. Link to Trash to Treasure book here. A very small list might include clothes, books, furniture, old machines and electronic devices, tools, anything that has a large amount of any useful material. Old beanbag stuffing becomes new toys, for instance. Anything hopelessly unfashionable in some way. They always come around with time or modification. One approach might be to make one person in any given department the recycling liaison, the person everyone turns to when they want to know if something goes in the trash or elsewhere. You may find in a short amount of time that you're throwing out very little and will pay less for rubbish removal. Often people just throw things in the trash because they don't want to deal with figuring out where it should go. Try putting a bin out for things that people aren't sure what to do with. If someone walks by and knows where it goes, they can help by moving it into the right bin. At last, but not least, never underestimate the power of the free bin or social network posting. Bits of scrap wood disappear like magic. Don't put a free pile anywhere dangerous to be standing or parking near. If your business is in a very heavily urban area, try not to keep things out too long, or you may find impromptu homes sprouting up nearby. Carpooling and mass transit. Getting cars off the road isn't just good for the other people who are still driving. Fewer roads, less carbon in the atmosphere, less political pressure and warfare with energy surplus nations, fewer required materials to be dug up, and, of course, less gas to buy and pollute. You can't deny the impact of everyone driving their own car to work every day, usually as the only passenger. If your employees are coming a long way or live very near each other, carpooling can be very effective, and they will likely be motivated to do so when the price of fuel goes up in a significant way. If you have a physical bulletin board somewhere, you could put up a map with labeled push pins. If you run a computer network, you can do the same thing with freely available Google Earth, just something to help people facilitate connections. Some companies offer employees a free pass for mass transit or a discount on one for buying in bulk. Check with your local transit authority to see if they offer any deals. Some of the benefits of reducing transit costs affect your employees in less tangible ways. You may find that people make friends more readily when they get to spend some time chatting on the way, and camaraderie is encouraged. Those who ride the bus might enjoy some downtime to listen to headphones, read a book, or even work on a laptop and come in relaxed. Offering flexible hours often makes it much easier to accommodate a variety of ways to get to work. More on this later. Reducing paper waste. If you have any sort of office, you've got some extra paper. Even if you can recycle it, it's still getting expensive as the cost of cutting down and processing trees climbs. Even better, use less of it. Companies that find themselves shredding a lot of papers can use the well-mixed shreds as packing materials. Paper that has been used on one side only is more likely to be used again if pre-cut into 4 or 6 pieces that can be picked up like a Post-it pad. You can make poster tack available for people to use their recycled notes in 3 dimensions. For those who spend a lot of time reading reports, eliminate paper reports by making greater use of mobile computing equipment. Files can be created by your employees and emailed or dropped into a networked folder for you. They can be read on inexpensive Palm devices instead of pricey laptops. As long as you can easily make notes on a document you can take with you, it's a good replacement for paper. Freely available programs can eliminate blank last pages and save expensive ink and toner. Good quality monitors, especially LCD types that use less power anyhow, will cause less eye strain and make people more likely to read things on a computer. Keeping a well-maintained website that has customer and employee services on it eliminates a lot of employee materials that end up recycled anyhow, and the bother of reprinting them when needed, and keeps you from having to print nearly as many brochures and flyers. Bringing lunch. You might be surprised to know how much waste is produced when people go out for lunch or get takeout to eat at their desks. This segment of the waste generated by end uses has grown tremendously in the last decade. By providing a kitchen, you give employees the chance to have a hot meal and not necessarily leftovers in the microwave, though that's a good start. If people are able to take advantage of a flexible lunch schedule, they can choose to eat communally and take advantage of fresh cooked food. Providing filtered water will keep people from buying water and creating plastic waste. It is also useful to make sure everyone takes a nice long lunch, or at least make sure people don't eat at their desks. People are that much more likely to actually sit down to eat somewhere else or in the place you provide. Conserving other office products. You will never get people to stop taking pens and paper clips. You can, however, cut down on the number of tasks that require them. You might give your employees nice new refillable pens, all different, for a Christmas present, and just see if they manage to lose them as quickly. Switching to a system that collects digital signatures allows you to eliminate a lot of paper records on your end. You may also want to consider using a scanner instead of a dedicated duplication machine. Many businesses use a small mountain of paper products every year in the form of utility and bathroom towels. Consider switching to a service that provides fresh bar towels and hand towel rolls. For many small operations, that service will be your own washing machine. Some towels are usually far less expensive in the auto section of your local retailer, as long as you make sure to buy only the white cotton variety. Don't get the red ones unless you work on cars for a living. One note about switching to paperless records. Be sure you keep good and regular backups, preferably records that are stored off-site on a regular basis. If there is digital information you can't get by without, treat it as such. Saving energy at the desk. Probably the easiest way to save energy is to turn off your monitor when you're not using it. There are settings on many monitors that will turn them off after a certain period of inactivity. Screensavers are not the same thing. You may also want to check to see that your hard drives are turned off after a period of inactivity. Just keeping them spinning consumes quite a few watts per hour, unless you're going to do virus scans or backups at night. You can also set your computer to turn off in the evening. Small businesses might want to consider investing in laptops instead of full-size computers. They're portable, Wi-Fi enabled, usually these days, and always use less power than their desktop counterparts. USB 2.0 connected peripherals make it easy to hook and unhook your computer for mobile work. Natural lighting can be used instead of lamps wherever possible. Encourage your employees to move their desks around to take advantage of it as they'd like. Make sure people turn out the lights when they're not using them. Replace incandescent light bulbs with compact fluorescent or, when they come down in price, LED bulbs. Some things you can do as a business owner. There are plenty of things you can do as a business owner or as someone who has executive authority to alter spending decisions and the overall direction of an operation. While your employees might suggest such ideas in meetings, they need you to take action and provide vision. Boldly demonstrating your own commitment will show your employees and customers that you're serious about making a change for the better and are at the helm of a forward-thinking company. Those who work for you will feel like they're contributing to a greater whole. Commissioning an energy audit. In an effort to keep you using power, most power companies and quite a few consultation firms will perform an energy audit of your business for little or no money. These experts will be able to identify the sort of changes you can make to reduce your consumption very quickly. It is, after all, what they do. While some of the suggestions they make may involve the purchase of expensive equipment, many of the ideas are just slight usage modifications. Aside from the general goal of identifying anywhere energy is being wasted, such as those mentioned in the previous section, other most common areas to analyze include heating and cooling costs, transport costs, manufacturing efficiency from a thermodynamic standpoint, human efficiency as it pertains to energy usage. Even if you are already aware of the specific suggestions they make and have them in your plan, you'll have a chance to get a good baseline. They won't necessarily be able to give you advice with regards to changing your product or service to reduce point source pollution, nor will they be qualified to address your move to eliminate the use of questionable chemicals, much less how to implement these changes as part of a marketing strategy. They will, however, be able to give you a feel for whether your changes will be worthwhile ones, and maybe make suggestions as to the best way to go about it. Renewable power commitment. In a great many markets, you have the option of buying your power from renewable options, be they fish-safe, hydroelectric, geothermic, wind-generated, or solar-powered. It might be just as easy as getting online and filling out a form. Such options are competitively priced with conventional coal-fired operations these days and may very well be less expensive in the future. Get in on the ground floor while there are still cost savings to be had. You don't have to be operating a grain mill to take advantage of water power, and you don't have to live in the desert to get a good return on solar with new technologies that are coming of age. Businesses that operate in rural areas might be the first to consider generating some of their own electricity, but anyone can take advantage of passive solar heating and cooling. Planting deciduous trees on the south and west side of your building will have a huge effect on summer cooling when they've leafed out and allow the sun in during the winter when you need it. Planning a building that takes advantage of thermal mass and window placement in the design phase can have an enormous effect on the energy bill for the entire life of the structure. Solar hot water heaters have been around for many years and can work even in quite cloudy environments. This option is probably most useful for providing hot water for employees and customers to use for washing rather than a certified production kitchen. Producing your own electricity is still quite a large investment in panels and batteries, but remote locations can find small-scale applications very useful, such as powering pumps and signs. As new technologies come online and allow you to sell your power back to the electrical grid, these options will become more feasible for urban and suburban businesses. Other types of power generation are in the works, such as wave power for coastal communities or the tantalizing goal of workable fusion, though the latter is still several decades off. Suffice it to say that as the price of energy increases, as it undoubtedly will in the relatively near-term future, the demand for renewable power will increase and stimulate investment in these technologies. Saving water. You can do quite a few things to reduce your water and sewer bill, as well as decrease the amount of wastewater that needs treatment. Agricultural operations use vast quantities of water for irrigation and are notorious for polluting watersheds with high levels of runoff fertilizers. As a result, many such operations have invested in water collection and treatment facilities on site. You don't need to be a farmer to take advantage of water reclamation technologies. For instance, if your building has irrigation, you can collect water from the roof and sinks for irrigating the landscape. Some places have even experimented with eco-roof construction, by where ornamental and food-producing plants are grown on a living roof that collects and filters the water that lands on it through a carefully created soil profile. Some of the easiest changes are in how water is delivered. Install a small spigot on your sinks and a low-flow toilet to cut down on the fresh water that's wasted in regular use. Rewarding green employees. Everyone likes to be rewarded for their good work, and your employees are no different when it comes to coming up with good ideas and implementing changes. If someone is doing a good job, let him or her know. You could even make it a point to offer an award for the person who makes the greatest contribution to your company's ecologically friendly mission. Encourage flex time, part-time, and telecommuting. Imagine all the fuel and exhaust that would be saved if people didn't have to sit around in rush hour traffic. Rates of carpooling and ride-sharing would undoubtedly go up if people had the freedom to carpool with their friends or partners who do have rigid schedules. What if you had the freedom to wait until the rain let up a bit before having to bike across town? By allowing your employees a bit of flexibility in their work hours, you make it easier for them to conserve time and resources. Many people consider it a major benefit when their employers allow them to work on their own time. Such arrangements represent a very quickly growing segment of the workforce. Though it still isn't an option for the many people who work customer service or retail, those who work in offices or creative endeavors will be anxious to work around their lives instead of the other way around. You benefit from having a happy workforce that comes to work rested and ready to go. Those with children will especially appreciate the time they're allowed to spend with their families. People are much more likely to stay at a job that gives them unique flexibility, reducing the time and money spent on new hires. While many employers have moved to part-time employment to keep production up without having to pay full-time benefits, you don't have to follow this trend. It is becoming common in some professional fields to receive benefits for working 30 hours per week, allowing many parents with school-age children to be more fully engaged in the workforce and still have the time they need. Many also enjoy having the option of working 4 10-hour days and eliminating 20% of their travel time and budget at once. As a very busy business owner, you will no doubt be anxious to be able to do some of your work at home. It might take a little time for your employees to get used to it, but with a high-speed internet connection and a telephone, just about anyone with a little self-motivation can work from home. The ability to instantly communicate makes this an especially attractive option for rural operations and those involved in marketing or sales. You could start small and give your employees the option to try it 1 day a week and see how it goes. You might even want to farm some small tasks out to freelancers. Often paid by the piece rather than hourly, freelancers have the advantage of being seasoned professionals that are used to coming into a situation, working their magic, and then moving on to the next project. Many of them are so used to telecommuting that they don't even own cars. Reduce business air travel. Not only is flying expensive, but it releases tremendous amounts of CO2 directly into the atmosphere. People often don't realize that one cross-country trip uses as much fuel as several months of regular driving. One advantage of staying local or regional is that you don't have to attend conferences and conventions all over the country. While it's nice to travel, how much of it is really necessary? For that matter, how much air freight do you really need? By sticking with domestic ground shipping options whenever possible, you can keep your packages from adding to the problem also. Choose local suppliers whenever possible and try to minimize the amount of materials your products use that originate in far-flung locales. Biodiesel, electric, flex fuel, and hybrid vehicles. If your business engages in any sort of delivery, this vehicle becomes part of your public face. Make the impression a good one by using the most efficient type of vehicle for the work you do. As a small startup, it may be some time before you'll be able to afford a company vehicle, but as soon as you can, you will definitely want to consider the next 10 years or so of getting around as well as your company image. There are many options coming up that are coming down in price every day as demand for fuel-efficient vehicles skyrockets. While biodiesel still emits carbon, it does so without the heavy metals, toxic chemicals, and can be made anywhere. This also has the advantage of being used with vehicles that are capable of hauling large loads if you need that sort of capacity. Electric vehicles are ideal for applications where you are delivering lightweight items or just need transport yourself from place to place. Lightweight electric vehicles can be powered by anything that generates electricity, including your renewable options. The U.S. Post Office has gone one step further and uses Segway scooters in many cities. There are ways to get around without hauling a ton of steel with you. Long-term changes and goals. If you're just now embarking on changing the way you do business or are starting up, you can't do it all overnight. These things are going to take some time. Once you've got your plans all laid out, you'll want to prioritize and determine what item should come first. Keeping on such a sweeping change in operations might seem daunting, but if you keep the eventual goal in mind, each step won't seem very hard at all. Reducing resource consumption. There are always ways to use less energy and stuff. Many of them are outlined above, but your imagination is the only limit to the savings you can enjoy. Keeping your employees and customers aware of the changes you're making and why will keep them from thinking you're just trying to be cheap at their expense. Instead, you'll be able to take that money and invest it back into breaking into new and elite markets for your product or service and making your company a better place to work. A large part of this will be reducing transport and packaging wherever possible. Because of this, a focus on innovative packaging and local or regional sales make a huge contribution to this overall goal. Migrating to non-toxic substances. Some industries necessarily rely on more toxic substances than others. However, even such companies can find ways to change their product and process a bit and take on a new market niche. For instance, printmakers often use all sorts of toxic substances. However, switching to a different type of press and soy-based inks might allow you to go from printing glossy postcards to stylish, embossed greeting cards that feature the work of local freelance artists. You'll be able to charge more for your product, and when it does finally decompose, it won't leave behind an icky sheen. Some companies don't currently have the option to adopt a different method because it doesn't exist. You are then faced with choosing between whether you want to try and figure out how to use another substance and get the same results, or eliminate that product altogether. The latter can be a terrible option if your best-selling product is made out of baby seals or some such thing. But since you're phasing in these changes, you have the time to find another product or service to take its place, even if that means transitioning to a smaller business that is more profitable per capita. Eliminate or reduce harmful emissions. Along with eliminating the use of harmful substances on the way to your facility, you want to do everything in your power to make sure you approve of everything coming out. Not only will this make you a good neighbor, but also the sort of organization that you can be proud of. For instance, it might be impossible to eliminate the stench of your paper mill, but by using a significant portion of post-consumer recycled materials, you can reduce the amount of chemical digesting you need to use for each ream of paper you produce. Maybe you can switch to a type of chemical that can be used repeatedly as long as you make an effort to collect it. If you're operating a large manufacturing operation, it is likely that some agency is already monitoring your output, but small companies often operate without oversight. Don't let that be your blank check to toss marine pollutants into the regular rubbish bin. Make sure you're doing as little harm as possible, even if it's just a little thing. They add up over thousands of businesses into a real problem.